Good morning. Welcome to RSBN Live. I'm Matthew 18th. Hope you had a great weekend. If you watched those Masters yesterday, holy smokes. Ireland, very happy right now. Rory McIlroy with a great Masters win, that Grand Slam, that green jacket. For those of you that didn't watch golf and you're ready for some politics, well, we've got that for you right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network as it's the top of the hour. And today, of course, President Trump meeting with the El Salvadoran president, Nayib Bukele, a great rock star for conservatism, for freedom, for law and order, for safety, prosperity, and really is a friend of President Trump. So we're going to see both leaders meet at any minute right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. All of this brought to you by some great sponsors, including Colonial Metals Group. freegoldguide.com/RSBN. That's where you get that free gold guide. Everything with gold and silver, right? When it comes to your retirement and savings, if you'd like to put the money over towards gold and silver, always high value with gold and silver. So freegoldguide.com gets the ball rolling. Also, angelpace.com. If you'd like to go to that website, use the RSBN promo code. You'll get a great discount off of awesome products out of Spring, Texas. You see one of them there, and there's a number of them on that website as well. All right, so we see that President Trump will be meeting with the El Salvador president here soon. He'll have a meeting inside the Oval Office. Most likely, when we've covered foreign leaders' visits to the White House, we would see the leader meet with President Trump right outside of the West Wing. They usually wave to the cameras and then walk in to the Oval Office. After that, as soon as their meeting is done, we get that tape playback, and we'll play that for you in its entirety when both leaders meet, sitting down there at the Oval Office. And of course, there's that Q&A back and forth with the press. So today is a day of celebration. You know, two great leaders together on the same team, the same page for the free world. And we're going to see them together in just a bit. Speaking of Mr. Bukele, the president of El Salvador, he actually posted a video on X just a few days ago. Here's that video from the president of El Salvador.
Hold it. Oh, word. Hold.
Hide. 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 Hide.
Hold. Hold.
Okay, so that was posted, just the raw video on X the other day by President Bukele. Actually, President Trump calling him President B. You'll see that in a specific Truth Social post from the president a few days ago. And actually, Bukele highlighted that, and he put it in quotes, President B being called that. At the end of the day, we're seeing, again, two great leaders come together today. President Trump also posted a video about this great visit. We have a lot of videos coming up for you, but it's in regards to a lot of the top headlines as well. But let's go back to Now, President Trump, for his video, posted just yesterday on Truth Social. That video from El Salvador, President Trump retruthing that just yesterday. That was a video posted by the president of El Salvador some time ago, but it did show specifically what happens to those gang members, those people that are causing havoc in either our country or elsewhere. And you see what the fate is to those that choose to do those types of crimes, all sorts of crimes, as you guys know. So President Trump and Bukele, both law and order presidents and leaders, both people that will not, don't have a lot of room for especially illegal immigrants that cause havoc and crimes around the country. So we'll see today what is discussed between both President Bukele and President Trump. Now, also, before we get to our next video and our next talking points of the day, let's go to Tax Network USA. Obviously, it's tax day in just tomorrow, actually. So 800-357-1415 is the number. You see tnusa.com/RSNB. It says there, it might be a typo, RSBN, of course. 800-357-1415 is the number. So if you're looking to get your back taxes settled, you can do so through tnusa.com/RSBN. Also 800-357-1415. As it's 11:07 Monday, April 14th. This is what President Trump had to say about the visit from Bukele today from El Salvador. Looking forward to seeing President Bukele of El Salvador on Monday. Of course, today, our nations are working closely together to eradicate terrorist organizations and build a future of prosperity. President Bukele has graciously accepted into his nation's custody some of the most violent alien enemies of the world, and in particular, the United States. These barbarians are now in the sole custody of El Salvador, a proud and sovereign nation, and their future is up to President B and his government. They will never threaten or menace our citizens again. So I should have read that before I tossed to that video, but you get the idea. We see that both leaders are about law and order, and of course, that's safety for our nation, for our people. And there's a video that we're going to play a little bit later in the broadcast from Kristi Noem, the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, about this voice program. You're going to hear from people there in that video that will definitely pull at the heartstrings, because not only is it emotional, it's tragic to see what's happened to our people in this nation, not only because of the narcotics and fentanyl, but of the illegal alien crime and other crimes that we've seen. But there's a video that we'll go to in just a bit that will highlight some of that will be helpful to people that are affected by any illegal alien crime in our country. All right, so coming up for President Trump, we do know that he'll be meeting with the Ohio State Buckeye football team. Okay, so they won the national championship, of course, recently. So OHIO, the big chant there at the shoe in Columbus, the capital of Ohio, of course. So that football team will meet with President Trump at the South Lawn, so outside on the South Lawn of the White House today. That's a bit later. That'll be a second broadcast a bit later today, and that will be with RSBN host Robert McNeely for that one. And then what we'll do here is we'll be seeing the president of El Salvador here shortly. On Thursday, Italian President Giorgia Meloni will visit the White House. So We have the foreign leader today, and we have a foreign leader on Thursday. Of course, coverage you can watch right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Let's go from Italy, speaking about Giorgia Meloni, to South Africa. There's a post that President Trump posted just the other day. It was a very difficult post to read. It was also a difficult post to watch. If you'd like to watch it, it's on President Trump's Truth Social post. But he said, quote, "How could we be expected to go to South Africa for a very important G20 meeting when land confiscation and genocide is the primary topic of conversation? They are taking the land of white farmers and then killing them and their families. The media refuses to report on this." Of course, the fake news. "The United States has held back all contributions to South Africa. Is this where we want to be for the G20? Question mark. And he says there, "I don't think so." So that was a post just a few days ago about South Africa, showing one of the leaders of one of the parties there speaking with some serious violent rhetoric constantly toward people, especially white people in South Africa. So a post from President Trump. Okay, now let's switch gears as we are starting, of course, this week is Holy Week, Passover, just over the weekend for those in the Jewish faith. We have Easter, Resurrection Day coming up this weekend as well, Good Friday as well. So a lot going on, a lot of people talking about faith out there on Truth Social, on X, the president and his team, the White House Faith Office having a number of video messages put out as well. This is one of them from the president in regards to those in the Jewish faith. Take a look.
I want to wish the Jewish people in America and Israel and all around the world a very happy Passover. Every year at this time, Jewish families celebrate God's liberation of the ancient Israelites from slavery in Egypt, guiding them through the prophet Moses on a 40-year journey to a very promised land. The story of Exodus, which is retold around the globe and all over the world at every Passover Seder, is a reminder not only of the enduring strength of the Jewish people, but of the importance of putting our faith in Almighty God no matter what the circumstance. To all the Jewish families gathering with friends and loved ones this week, have a blessed Passover, and may God continue to watch over the Jewish people, the state of Israel, and the United States of America. Thank you very much.
And that video posted by the Trump team and also on the White House as well. So that video from him there. And also, we know that this week, of course, President Trump and Melania Trump actually shared a proclamation, a message about the Christian faith. We're going to get to that in just a second. But every day this week, leading up to Resurrection Sunday, of course, Easter, April 20th, RSBN host Robert McNeely and I, when we're on our broadcasts, whether we're here both at the desk at the same time or on solo broadcasts, are going to share a favorite scripture that we have, whether it's from the Old Testament or the New Testament. So today's scripture that my wife and I talked about before we got married, we were connecting on various levels, and one of them was our faith. And we talked about a scripture that is 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7. And we both remember saying that this was a powerful scripture. So here it is. "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power and of love and a sound mind." 2 Timothy 1:7. 4 more scriptures to go, 4 more days to go from me that I'll share with you throughout the broadcasts tomorrow through Friday. Of course, Robert will be sharing his as well. So that Monday scripture right there. As you're taking a live look there, you're going to see the El Salvador president, Bukele, meeting with President Trump. And then once they're in the Oval Office, we'll be able to see that Q&A back and forth with reporters and any information that we hear from the El Salvador president as well. All right, so the president also delivered this message that we have a screenshot of right there on the screen, the presidential message on Holy Week. This Holy Week, Christians around the world remember the crucifixion of God's only begotten Son and Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And on Easter Sunday, we celebrate his glorious resurrection and proclaim, as Christians have done for nearly 2,000 years, he is risen. The proclamation from the president goes on to say, "Through the pain and sacrifice of Jesus on the cross, we saw God's boundless love and devotion to all humanity, and in that moment of his resurrection, history was forever changed with the promise of everlasting life. As we approach this joyous Easter Sunday, I want to wish Christians everywhere a happy and very blessed holiday. America is a nation of believers. We need God, we want God, and with his help, we will make our nation stronger, safer, greater, more prosperous, and more united than ever before. Thank you and happy Easter. That from the President and Melania Trump, just posted on Truth Social and X within the past 24 hours as well. So it's 11:15, Monday, April 14th. You see there, that's the stakeout location. That's the live camera where we're going to see the El Salvadoran president pull up in the motorcade and greet and meet, most likely, it's usually President Trump right there outside the west wing of the White House. And then they will go to the Oval Office. They'll meet, they'll talk, they'll have a mini press conference. We'll have all of it right here on RSBN Live for you. Also, let's shift gears and talk about the southern border as we bounce around a little bit, but we're going from topic to topic or headline to headline. And this was a new video brought to you by the Department of Homeland Security. If you or a loved one has been impacted by crime committed by an illegal alien, you are not alone. There's a phone number for you to call. It's 1-855-48-VOICE, 855-488-6423. Again, 855-48-VOICE. You can also visit ice.gov/voice, ice.gov/voice. Let's listen in now to the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, who recently posted this message to the country.
Announcing the reopening of the ICE's Victim of Immigration Crime Engagement, or the VOICE office. The VOICE office began during the first Trump administration, and it was a resource for those victims of crime.
I absolutely love that President Trump and Secretary Noem is bringing back VOICE.
Biden administration shuttered this office, and to look at the history of it, there was no reason to do so.
I literally cried when Biden took away VOICE because he took away the only place that I could go and get some help.
But to have this office back open for help, support, for fight, that's all I can hope for. And so that other future families that unfortunately will go through what we did will have some backing.
Trying to write or writing letters to Biden, to Kamala, all of them, and never hearing anything. We were completely ignored.
This shows us that this administration cares, and they care about what happened to our children.
And I want to thank everybody for putting this together and giving us a voice.
So ice.gov/voice, ice.gov/voice. All right, let's go to Kalshi.com as well, one of our great sponsors here at the network. When will Bitcoin hit $150,000? Well, you can trade, you can bet. There's a lot of other questions on there as well that you can trade and bet on. And it's a great sponsor here at Right Side as well. Kalshi.com, growing in a lot of popularity around this country. And in some cases, I'm not going to say around the world yet, because I think it's pretty much the United States for this website. So we'll play it safe and say right here in the 48 continental United States, and of course Hawaii and Alaska as well. So Kalshi.com/RSBN if you'd like to check out what's on there to trade, to bet, and that's one of them. When will Bitcoin hit $150,000? There's a lot of fun questions on there as well, so you just check it out if you like. Kalshi.com/RSBN. All right, sticking with some of the peace through strength in a way, the southern border, law and order. Of course, we're going to see the El Salvador president here at any moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to another video with the Department of Defense. We're going to hold off on that for now, as we may see the El Salvador president show up on the right side of your screen. If it's delayed by more than 5 minutes, then we'll play the video as we are continuously live here, getting ready to see the El Salvador president with President Trump. So let's go over a few items again of the day. So at 11 a.m., which is obviously now, between now and the next hour, you're going to see Bukele and President Trump meet. You're also going to see them at the Oval Office. We'll share with you that video in its entirety. Also, a little bit later today, the president will meet with the Ohio State Buckeye football team, the 2025 college football national champion. So it'll be great to see that coverage a bit later today. I believe the time is at, I'll have to double check. I'm going to get the time right for you, as we are airing 2 broadcasts today. If there's more breaking news or any other information that we can share with you, I'm sure we'll have another live opportunity. But let's go with some information that I can get correct for you here as we figure out what time. Producers, do you guys know what time we're specifically starting later today? I think I see 2:30 Eastern. So it looks like 2:30 Eastern is when we will have that coverage starting in a little bit. So we'll see you a bit later too, as we are live right now on this Monday, April 14th. So again, quite the week, as it is Holy Week. We're going to see a lot of video messages from the president in regards to that. We saw one to those of the Jewish faith. We saw the message to those of the Christian faith recently as well. So it's going to be quite a busy week. On Thursday, Giorgia Meloni will be at the White House as well. So a lot to cover this week, as we're seeing a few photographers there taking some photos, probably of the incoming motorcade. So that most likely is what they're looking at, unless they're testing a couple pictures out there. But the military is there, ready to greet this foreign leader, which will happen at any minute. Also, following that, we'll have the back and forth information when it comes to the Oval Office meeting between President Trump and the president of El Salvador. And then we'll hear that Q&A between both world leaders. All right, let's go back to some more information from earlier today as well. As we continue to monitor various stories that are out there, we're seeing a number of smaller incidents, but still aviation disasters. We know that Sean Duffy, the Department of Transportation Secretary, monitoring each of these events, figuring out what went wrong, how did it happen. The NTSB out there when it comes to the helicopter crash in New York, the plane crash in Boca Raton, the smaller plane that claimed the lives of 3 people in Florida. And there was another plane crash. There was a smaller one, I believe, in the state of New York. So we're just monitoring various incidents like that and other national breaking news stories out there as we continue to bring you live coverage from the White House, from inside the Beltway and outside the Beltway, right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. And if you'd like to donate to Right Side, all you have to do is text RSBN to 801-801, RSBN to 801-801, as we continue to expand here at the network as a unit, as a team, covering all of this conservative news, but also whatever is happening out there. And it's from a perspective and a vantage point and a lens of common sense and the Constitution and our country and we the people. So quite fun to do it, quite great to do it, because you don't get it from the mainstream media. And that's about 95% of media out there, whether it's TV, whether it's on your phone, online, wherever you get media, 95%, and that's a loose estimate, but if you list off all of the mainstream media outlets, whether it is the LA Times or whether it's the Washington Post or whoever out there, you know, there's a lot more of them than there are of us. However, hopefully the people on the left will start waking up like some of the Democrats have and have come to the right side of the aisle. And again, it's not really just about Republican, Democrat. It's about good versus evil. It's about truth versus lies. We get the whole talking point when it comes to that. So we're seeing a lot more people show up to watch conservative media, and great to see that. But also great to cover someone like President Trump, who draws the huge crowd and audience. However, outside of that, one day, maybe way in the future, whenever that is, conservative media will still be around, because truth is what's needed and it resonates with the free world. And so as long as no government tries to shut and censor the conservative media, we're going to be here. Now, we'll hopefully have a lot of great Republican or right-wing or truth, common sense presidents in our future in this country that would not want to censor the information we're talking about. I bring that up because I saw something the other day in the UK. It was almost called the mind thought police, or the thought mind police, where if you say something that's against anything, whether it's a social kind of justice issue or whatever, you'll have police show up at your door. there's a lot of stuff going on in these other countries that we just don't want to see here. We don't want to see it done there, but we definitely don't want it at our nation. So right now it's great. It feels good, right? Because freedom has been restored in our country thanks to President Trump and his team. So we're holding on to that, and we got to keep that thing moving forward, because we know that we're in the majority in this country that just simply want to celebrate a week like Holy Week. Passover just over the weekend for the Jewish faith. For us Christians, coming up, Good Friday and Resurrection Day on Sunday and on, and to have that freedom of religion here in this country. We don't want anyone to try and curtail that. There are some groups out there that really want that to happen, for it to be a certain way. But we're in the land of the free and the home of the brave. So glad to be a part of it here in this country, and proud to be an American, as we are at 11:25 this morning, April 14th on this Monday. Hope you had a great weekend. Let's go to Colonial Metals Group as we wait for the president of El Salvador, freegoldguide.com/RSBN. Those BRICS nations out there like Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, they're trying to use their local currency instead of our dollar. And on top of that, having gold and silver as a backup to the retirement and the savings, always a good plan. So freegoldguide.com/RSBN, great sponsor here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Let's go to that video that I was talking about before as we await the El Salvador president. What we can do is maybe keep that on a split screen and play the video that I'm referring to from the Department of Defense that was recently posted. And in this video, it's great that they highlight a lot of what President Trump's agenda is, including peace through strength. I remember at that Commander-in-Chief ball when President Trump said, we're going to have a military that's so strong, the strongest of the world, that it'll be so strong we won't have to use it. How awesome would that be? So let's take a look at that video right now from the Department of Defense.
In the Department of Defense, excellence isn't given, it's earned. We are the world's greatest fighting force because we demand the best from ourselves every single day. We rise through the ranks based on merit, not privilege. Accountability, unwavering standards, and constant readiness are the cornerstones of our warrior ethos. We rise to the opportunity, the purpose, the chance to be part of something larger than ourselves. Our mission is clear: to achieve peace through strength, to deter conflict, and if necessary, to win decisively. We are all American warriors. We will put America first and defend our country's security. We are the U.S. Department of Defense.
That just posted by the DOD within the past, I believe it was this morning. It said 1 hour ago on X. So yeah, definitely this morning, that posted by the DOD. Great follows when it comes to seeing what the news is out there. I mean, back in the day, as a news reporter, as a anchor, a host, a correspondent, it was much more difficult to bring in a lot of the news headlines. Now it's all at our fingertips, but here's the thing at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Of course, we have the cameras and the live feeds at the White House. This is something that does not come free, so it's great to be able to provide you this coverage. But also the analysis, the commentary, the interviews. We bring on various guests, of course, from time to time here at the network. And we are looking forward to more rallies here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. And that's right, I said more rallies because President Trump the other day said there would be some tele-rallies and some rallies in person. If I listened to him correctly on the context of that, talking about the midterms in 2026. So he'll be, stumping for a number of great America First patriots so we can win those midterms. We already know we're winning now, and the huge percentage of people that are on the side of the right side of history. So we should win right through with those midterms and continue on. But still, very important midterms coming up. But we know that President Trump and the team doing a great job, and we'll be covering it this week. Every move that is done when it comes to the president's schedule, any videos we get, we'll show you. And on top of that, on Thursday, the president of Italy, Giorgia Meloni, will be at the White House. But before we get there, we're just on Monday, of course, and we'll be showing you Mr. Bukele, the president of El Salvador. Again, a great leader there. Law and order, all about the people, all about protecting and serving and the great things that we see, like we see it with President Trump. So let's go there live right now as we see this great leader from El Salvador.
Ready two, ready doors, ready pop, ready open. Ready close, ready shut, ready face, forward march.
I was thinking about a number of world leaders right now that are on Team Freedom or on Team Free World. That is one of them, Nayib Bukele of El Salvador. We also know Viktor Orban of Hungary. We also know the former president of Brazil, who should still be president, Jair Bolsonaro, is part of that team. And there are a number of other leaders out there. Don't we wish, and we can pray and work hard and vote, I mean, for those people in these other countries, to be able to vote the right leaders in, hopefully no stolen elections and that kind of thing. I know that it's sometimes wishful thinking, but if we were to have those positive, great freedom type leaders in all of these countries around the world, I wonder what the world would look like all across the globe. But anyway, you can only think about the whole globe so long because it's a big world out there, and we're just happy to have President Trump here in this country, in the United States of America. Speaking of President Trump, speaking of the globe, President Trump posted this at 10:12 Eastern time, so a little more than an hour ago. The war between Russia and Ukraine is Biden's war, not mine. I just got here, and for 4 years during my term, had no problem in preventing it from happening. President Putin and everyone else respected your president, President Trump, of course. I had nothing to do with this war, but I'm working diligently to get the death and destruction to stop. If the 2020 presidential election was not rigged, and it was, he says, in so many ways, that horrible war would never have happened. President Zelensky and crooked Joe Biden did an absolutely horrible job in allowing this travesty to begin. There were so many ways of preventing it from ever starting, but that's the past. Now we have to get it to stop, and fast. And then he ends by saying, so sad. So we see, again, when you have great leaders in, great things happen. When you have terrible leaders in, terrible things happen. So that's common sense, right? I don't need to say that to you. You already know that. It's common sense, But that's what we're about here at the network. That's what President Trump's about. So we're just trying to get all of these great things done for our country. As we know, the motto is to make America great again. And it's one step at a time through all of the cabinet leaders that we see doing great things for our country. We do want to see a number of things happen as well. And this is not just me speaking. I've spoken to a number of friends, but also on Truth Social, on X. We still want to see all of those declassified documents and files all across the board that was discussed by Representative Ana Paulina Luna. As those come out, hopefully they come out soon, all of them. But outside of that, we also are looking to see any prosecutions that are needed for those that broke the law and came after President Trump. Now, that's not President Trump's job. That's Pam Bondi, Kash Patel's job to take care of that. But at the end of the day, we have to have a free and fair country, and we have to have that for the future. And we know that President Trump has this term until 28-29. We know there's talk about a possible third term when it comes to having the vice president as the president, J.D. Vance, and then stepping aside and having President Trump as the vice president and taking over. We get all that, but I'm not going to go there right now. I'm not going to say I'm a constitutional scholar when it comes to if that can really work. I'm just saying we have President Trump now. Sure, I'd love to have President Trump for 20 more years, but at the end of the day, or any leader that is on the side of MAGA and freedom. But what we're looking at is our cabinet leaders doing such a great job for our country. So we're following that. We're monitoring each of the things that happen, whether it's the DOJ, whether it's HHS or DOD or DHS or Customs and Border Protection outside of the cabinet. We're seeing a lot of great things happening along the southern border as well. So let's go to mypillow.com/RSBN, mypillow.com/RSBN. You see a lot of great products right there on your screen, including the My Mattress Topper for $99.99. I don't know about you, but I have one of those. It's great to add to the bed, makes it so much more comfortable. Sometimes in the morning it makes it hard to get up, of course. Maybe every morning it does, but still, you have to have a good rest, right? So all you have to do is go to mypillow.com/RSBN for up to 50% off everything. So more than 2,000 products right there with mypillow.com/RSBN. Also, if you'd like to check out the webpage, there are so many products, including something that'll help you get out of bed, this My Coffee right here. So great tasting cup of joe from Mike Lindell, mypillow.com, right there on the screen. All right, so 11:35, Monday, April 14th. Thanks so much for streaming in with us. Getting ready to check out the Q&A between President Bukele and President Trump from the White House in the Oval Office. Once we get that tape playback, we will play that in its entirety right here on the network. Also, let's go to some more of President Trump's Truth Social posts as we get ready for that meeting. The best definition of intelligence is the ability to predict the future. That an hour ago from President Trump. The best definition of intelligence is the ability to predict the future. All right, so you have that. As President Trump has intelligence briefings every day at the White House, and even on the weekends, whether he's at Mar-a-Lago or at the White House or on another trip somewhere, he always gets those intelligence briefings. So it's good to know what's happening out there across our country and across the world. What a job it is to be able to take on this mantle of the presidency and to do it with the people in mind, instead of a situation where it's just establishment or you're just holding the office just to get rich and be famous and that's it. We know that President Trump was already rich and already famous before he even stepped into this role. And then he went through what he went through the past 4 years, and he still stuck with it because he's doing it for the right reasons, as you guys know. So we're seeing that sense of urgency with the president as every day there's either another executive order signing or there's another Truth Social post that is really guiding policy as well. We're seeing some great things from our people in Congress as well when it comes to, Eli Crane and others doing the best they can to have an America First policy, America First agenda, all to make America great again. So if there are any other thoughts about that when it comes to the direction of our country, we're seeing it go in the right direction. All right, so those of you that are just joining us right now, it's 11:38 on the dot, a.m. Eastern Time. Again, thanks so much for waking up with us. Those of you on the West Coast as well, thanks for streaming in. Wherever you're watching, including Rumble and other social platforms right now here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Let's go to the top of the broadcast where we showed a number of videos to you. Let's kind of go to that again. Let's go to President Nayib Bukele posted on X just a few days ago when he arrived to Washington, D.C. Let's take a look. We're hearing that we might be going to the Oval Office right now, so let's hold off on that video as we get ready to toss to the Oval Office. If we, guys, do we see that feed right now or? Yeah, we do. All right. So why don't we go to that feed right now in the Oval Office in Washington, D.C.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to have a friend of mine because we went through this together and got along very well for my entire period of time. So I knew him as a very young man. Now he's just a young man. And he's done a fantastic job. Mr. President, it's an honor to have you.
Thank you,
You're
Mr.
doing
President.
incredibly for your country. And we appreciate working with you because you want to stop crime, and so do we. And it's very, very effective. And I want to just say hello to the people of El Salvador and say they have one hell of a president. Okay? And I mean that, and I know him well. I know him as a very young man, Marco, even younger than you. You know, he started pretty young.
He'll always be younger.
Young at heart. But I want to thank you for the great job you're doing. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Well, it's an honor to be here in the Oval Office with the President and leader of the free world. We're very happy, and we're very eager to help. We know that you have a crime problem, a terrorism problem that you need help with. And we're a small country, but if we can help, we will do it. And we actually turned the murder capital of the world, that was the journalists call it, right? Murder capital of the world, into the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. And, you know, sometimes they say that we imprison thousands. I like to say that we actually liberated millions. So, you know, like,
That's very good. Who gave him that line? Do you think I can use that?
Yes. And in fact, Mr. President, you have 350 million people to liberate. Yeah. But to liberate 350 million people, you have to imprison some. You know, that's the way it works, right? You cannot just, you know, free the criminals and think crime is going to go down magically. You have to imprison them so you can liberate 350 million Americans that are asking for the end of crime and the end of terrorism. And it can be done. I mean, you're doing it already. And I'm sure that people have seen the change in the streets. Yeah. A long way to go because you're just initiating your second term. But it's clear that, you know, with the numbers at the border, you know, when even in Democrat-run cities, they get a help from the work you're doing. So I'm really happy to be here, honored, and eager to help.
Well, we had a terrible thing happen. We had an administration that allowed people to come in freely into our country from not only South America, but from all over the world, many from the Congo in Africa, Asia, all over the world, Europe, rough parts of Europe. And they came from prisons, and they came from mental institutions, and they came from gangs, and the gangs of Venezuela and other places. And hundreds of thousands and even millions of them came. 21 million people altogether, but many of the people that came, just a tremendous percentage of them were criminals, in some cases violent criminals. We had 11,088 known murderers. Half of them murdered more than one person. This was allowed by a man who, what he did to our country is just unbelievable. So we're straightening it out. We're getting him out. But what they did and what that party did to our country, open borders, anybody could come in. As soon as I heard that, I said, every prison's going to be emptied out into our country. That's what happened. And we're straightening it out. And we just had numbers. We had the highest recruiting numbers in the history of our country going into police departments. And a year ago, we had the lowest numbers. You couldn't hire a
biggest change.
Yeah. Nobody's ever seen. The lowest to the highest. And the military now, Marines, the Army, Air Force, Coast Guard, every slot is, I mean, we have the best numbers we've ever had. We call it recruitment numbers. And we've never had anything like it. We had records on at every single level. But very important, the policemen. The policemen are joining forces now that we're having a hard time with policemen because we weren't protecting our police. Yeah. And we cherish our police. The police are great, and the firemen and everybody else. But we have the highest numbers that we've ever had, the most enthusiasm. Great enthusiasm and on trade and other things. We're doing great. We're taking in billions and billions of dollars. We made, 2 weeks ago, I gave them a little bit of a pause because, you know, you have to show a little flexibility. But we go back to what we have to do. The markets have been very strong once they got used to it. But we were losing $2 billion a day. There's no company big like this. But this is the biggest deal ever made. Now we're making $3 billion a day. We're a great country, but we had stupid people running this country, and I can say it. But what they've done to us at the border should never and can never be forgotten. It's a sin, what they did, and you are helping us out, and we appreciate it.
Thanks. Thank you. Actually, what you're doing with the border is remarkable. It has dropped, what, 95%? It's incredible.
As of this morning, 99%, 99.1% to be exact.
Why are those numbers not in the media?
Well, they get out with the fake news, you know, like CNN over here doesn't want to put them out because they don't like putting out good numbers. They only like putting out because I think they hate our country, actually.
Yeah,
but it's a shame. You're right. Isn't that a great question? Why doesn't the media? Why don't they put out numbers?
Yeah, 99%. I mean, it's crazy, right?
We're doing
it's
great.
A crazy turnaround.
Christy, could you maybe say a couple of words about the border? How we're doing?
You know, it's just been absolutely phenomenal what a great leader can do. Clear direction. Our laws matter. We should only have people in our country that love us, and the Border Patrol and our ICE officers and law enforcement officers have done fantastic work. So we're proud of them. Now we just need to get the criminals and murderers and rapists and dangerous gang members and terrorist organizations out of our country. So, Mr. President Bukele, we thank you very much for your partnership. It has been wonderful for us to be able to have somewhere to send the worst of the worst and someone to partner with. And we'd like to continue that partnership because it's been a powerful message of consequences. Mr. President, you wanted people to know that there was consequences if you break our laws and harm our people and endanger families. And this is a clear consequence for the worst of the worst that we have somewhere to put them.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we even had this gang member from Venezuela, one of the ones you sent, and we interviewed him just to get some information, etc. from them. And he said, oh, well, I got arrested 6 times, but they released me the 6th time, so I should be released again. And then I said, well, what's the last thing you do? And he said, well, I shot a cop in the leg, but I didn't kill him. I just shot him in the leg. And we're like, this guy was arrested 6 times here in the United States, 6 times. He was released 6 times, and in the he was released 5 times, and the last time he was sent to El Salvador, right? So he's not getting released. But the last time he shot a cop, actually, and he shot him in the leg. So these are, like you said, there's something broken.
It's the liberal establishment. But they're not running things anymore in this country, and we're run by, and I don't say conservative, I don't say anything, we're run by people with great common sense.
Yeah, common sense.
Because it's all common sense. Yeah. It's not liberal conservative, it's common sense.
Exactly.
And, do you allow men to play in women's sports? Do you allow men to box your women and box? Because I know you have a lot of boxing.
That's violence.
That's abuse of a woman. It's abuse of a woman. But we have people that fight to the death because they think men should be able to play in women's sports. And some of those sports, it wouldn't matter much, but it still matters. But some of them are very dangerous for women.
Some years ago, like we said, a decade ago or so, women's rights movements were pressuring so that we enacted specific laws to avoid men abusing women. And I think those laws were great because there were a lot of men abusing women. But now some of the same people are trying to backtrack on that and actually trying to make new laws allowing men to abuse women in sports. So actually that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
It's crazy. They have weightlifting records, right?
Yeah.
A woman gets up, let's say, she's incredible. A guy gets up and beats her by 100 pounds. What are you going to do? A record that hadn't been broken in 18 years. They put on an ounce, quarter of an ounce, eighth of an ounce for 18 years. Now they have a guy come up, ping. The whole thing is crazy. But they continue to fight. And I don't like talking about it because I want to save it for just before the next election. I said to my people, don't even talk about it because they'll change. And but I watched this morning, there was a congressman fighting to the death for men to play against women in sports. And you say to yourself, why? What are they doing, right? What are they doing? But your country's not too big in that.
No, of course not. We're big in protecting women.
Good.
Yeah.
That's right. It's a very important form of protection, too.
And as you can see, most of my cabinet are women, so.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
That's why you're
And
running.
they're not DEI hires or anything.
They
They're
can
just
be.
great at what they do. Right?
That's right. This is very impressive.
Yeah,
This
no.
is a first. We've had women, but we've never had 3 of them right here. That's
4 and 3
and
men.
look who we have. You guys feel a little bit mistreated? That's good. I like it. We've been advanced. I've been very advanced in that regard too. We have Pam, who's been so fantastic. Christy, and the most powerful woman they see anywhere.
I know, exactly.
She's rated.
They're all afraid of her.
Susie Wells. They say, oh, she's tough. Most powerful woman in the world, according to magazines. What do I know?
Yes.
But I think she probably is.
Yeah, she probably is.
Yeah, she probably is.
Congratulations.
And you know Stephen, who's done such a great job.
Thank you, sir.
We have great
He's
people.
very famous too.
But we love working with him. He really lets them have it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There's no games.
No. It's very good.
He knows. Do you have any questions, please?
President Trump.
Go ahead, let's not start
Mr.
with
President.
CNN because they're just so
Mr. President.
wrong. Yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. You repeatedly mentioned last night that Russia's attack on Ukraine was a mistake. What is the exact mistake? And had you given Putin a deadline to actually move toward a ceasefire?
The mistake was letting the war happen. If Biden were competent, and if Zelensky were competent, and I don't know that he is. We had a rough session with this guy over here. He just kept asking for more and more. That war should have never been allowed to happen. That war, I went 4 years and Putin wouldn't even bring it up. And as soon as the election was rigged and I wasn't here, that war started. There was no way that war should have been allowed to happen. And Biden should have stopped it. And you take a look at Putin. I'm not saying anybody's an angel. But I will tell you, I went 4 years and it wasn't even a question. He would never, and I told him, don't do it. You're not going to do it. And it was the apple of his eye, but there was no way that he would have done it. All you had to do is lower oil prices. If you lowered oil prices, Biden kept the prices so high because he made it impossible to get it. If you lowered oil prices, you would have never had the war. But you wouldn't have had it with me anyway. That war would have never happened. And I think it's a great abuse. So now what do? You get a country where 25% of its land is gone, and the best locations, where millions of people are killed. You know, you haven't reported accurately the death. And this was Biden's war, and I'm trying to stop it. And I think we're going to do a good job. I hope we're going to do it. They lose 2,500 young people a week, think on average. Now they're Russians and they're Ukrainians, but it's 2,000. We don't care. It's like whatever it is.
Intolerable.
They're not from your country. They're not from mine. But I want to stop it. 2,500. It's a killing field. It's like the Civil War. You take a look. I look at the satellite pictures. This should not be happening in our time. Of course, our time can be pretty violent, as we know. But that's a war that should have never been allowed to start. And Biden could have stopped it, and Zelensky could have stopped it, and Putin should have never started it. Everybody's to blame.
Have you spoken to President Zelensky, sir, about his offer to purchase more Patriot missile batteries?
Oh, I don't know. He's always looking to purchase missiles. You know, he's against. Listen, when you start a war, you got to know that you can win the war, right? You don't start a war against somebody that's 20 times your size, and then hope that people give you some missiles. If we didn't give them what we gave, remember, I gave them javelins. That's how they won their first big battle with the tanks that got stuck in the mud, and they took them out with javelins. They have an expression that Obama at the time, Obama gave them sheets and Trump gave them javelins. But just something that should have never happened. It's a really shame. The towns are destroyed. Towns and cities are, largely destroyed. They have the spires, the beautiful spires that go up. They say they were the most beautiful in the world in Ukraine for whatever reason, but the most beautiful in the world, they're mostly laying on their side, shattered and broken. And most importantly, you have millions of people dead. Millions of people dead because of 3 people. I would say 3 people. Let's say Putin, number 1, but let's say Biden, who had no idea what the hell he was doing. number 2, and Zelensky. And all I can do is try and stop it. That's all I want to do. I want to stop the killing. And I think we're doing well in that regard. I think you'll have some very good proposals very soon.
Last question, sir. Have you attributed a motive through the FBI investigation behind the attack on Governor Josh Shapiro over the weekend?
No, I haven't, but the attacker was not a fan of Trump, I understand, just from what I read and from what I've been told. The attacker basically wasn't a fan of anybody. It's probably just a whack job. And certainly a thing like that cannot be allowed to happen.
So good relation with President Bukele, the best guarantee that this time you won't terminate the temporary protected status?
I have a great relationship with this man. I have the best relationship with him. We've known each other. I've known him since he was a very young man, as I said, very, very young. And I was impressed. I said, look at this guy is, in fact, you sort of look like a teenager. You look like a teenager. I said, what kind of a country is this? He grew up well in the last 5 years.
Do you support the extension for nationals of El Salvador under temporary protected status?
Do you plan to ask
Let's hear the question from this very low-rated anchor at CB.
Thank you, President. Do you plan to ask President Bukele to help return the man who your administration says was mistakenly deported? The man who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador?
Well, let me ask Pam, would you answer that question?
Sure, President. First and foremost, he was illegally in our country. He had been illegally in our country. And in 2019, 2 courts, an immigration court and an appellate immigration court, ruled that he was a member of MS-13 and he was illegally in our country. Right now, it was additional paperwork had needed to be done. That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us. The Supreme Court ruled, President, that if, as El Salvador wants to return him, this is international matters, foreign affairs, if they wanted to return him, we would facilitate it, meaning provide a plane.
So will you return him, President Bukele?
And you are doing a great job.
Thank you.
Stephen Miller, wait a minute. Can you just also respond to that question? Because, you know, it's asked by CNN, and they always ask it with a slant. Because they're totally slanted because they don't know what's happening. That's why nobody's watching them. But would you answer that question also, please?
Yes, gladly. So, as Pam mentioned, there's an illegal alien from El Salvador. So, with respect to you, he's a citizen of El Salvador. So, it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point. As 2 immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13. When President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States. So he had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States and had to be returned because of the foreign terrorist designation. This issue was then, by a district court judge, completely inverted, and a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here. That issue was raised to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly that neither Secretary of State nor the President could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador from El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13, which, as I'm sure you understand, rapes little girls, murders women, murders children, is engaged in the most barbaric activities in the world, and I can promise you if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
So you don't plan to ask for anything to get him back?
And what was the ruling in the Supreme Court, Steve? Was it 9-0?
Yes, it was a 9-0
in our favor.
In our favor, against the district court ruling, saying that no district court has the power to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. As Pam said, the ruling solely stated that if this individual, at El Salvador's sole discretion, was sent back to our country, that we could deport him a second time.
Well,
no version of this legally ends up with him ever living here because he is a citizen of El Salvador. That is the president of El Salvador. Your questions about it, per the court, can only be directed to him.
I asked President Bukele, can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to not suggesting that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right?
It's always
how can I smuggle? How can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, I mean, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
So you could release him inside El Salvador.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing. I mean, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. I mean, we just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal, released into
I mean, there's a fascination.
They would love it.
They're
sick. These are sick people. Marco, do you have something to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, Stephen outlined it. I don't understand what the confusion is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin, except for Venezuela that wasn't refusing to take people back, or places like that. I can tell you this, Mr. President, no, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple. End of story.
And that's what the Supreme Court held, by the way, to Marco's point. The Supreme Court said exactly what Marco said, that no court has the authority to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. We won a case 9-0, and people like CNN are portraying it as a loss, as usual, because they want foreign terrorists in the country who kidnap women and children. But President Trump, his policy is foreign terrorists that are here illegally get expelled from the country, which, by the way, is a 90-10 issue.
Well, Mr. President, you said that if the Supreme Court said someone needed to be returned, that you would abide by that. You said that on Air Force One just a few days ago. And they said that it must be facilitated.
Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country? Why can't you just say that? Why do you go over and over? And that's why nobody watches you anymore. You have no credibility. Please, go ahead.
President Trump, thank you so much. How many illegal criminals are you planning on exporting to El Salvador? And President Bukele, how many are you willing to take from the U.S.?
As many as possible. And I just asked the president, it's this massive complex that he built, jail complex. I said, can you build some more of them, please? As many as we can get out of our country that were allowed in here by incompetent Joe Biden through open borders. Open borders. You probably hear open borders and you can't even understand it because nobody can understand. Nobody smart or with common sense can understand it. So we have millions of people that should not be in this country that are dangerous. Not just people, because we have people, but we have millions of people that are murderers, drug dealers. They've been allowed to come into our country by other countries that were very smart. When they heard that this very low IQ president, and by the way, I took my cognitive exam as part of my physical exam, and I got the highest mark, and one of the doctors said, sir, I've never seen anybody get that kind of, that was the highest mark. I hope you're happy with that, although they haven't been bugging me too much to take a cognitive, but I did do my physical and it was released. I hope you're all happy with it. I noticed there's no question, so probably you are. But the cognitive, they said to me, sir, would you like to take a cognitive test? I said, did Biden take one? No. Did anybody take one? No, not too many people took them. I said, what about Obama? Did he take one? No, he didn't take one either. I said, let me be the only one to take one. But I've actually taken them 3 times already. I like taking them because they're not too tough for me to take. But we had a great physical exam, so I know you're going to ask that. And the doctors who are total professionals, Walter Reed Medical Center, they're great people. And I visited a soldier that was badly wounded, incredible soldier, lost his leg, and spent a lot of time with him. I mean, great with his mother. And it was really a very great thing. They do a phenomenal job. I just want to say, Walter Reed, I was there for, 5-6 hours. You were there with me. But I took a full physical, and it came out perfecto, so that's good. That means you've got me for a little longer.
Would you also be willing to pay for those facilities to be opened if new ones were going to be built?
I'd do something. We'd help them out. Yeah, we help them. They're great facilities, very strong facilities, and they don't play games. I'd like to go a step further. I mean, I said it to Pam. I don't know what the laws are. We always have to obey the laws, but we also have homegrown criminals that push people into subways. that hit elderly ladies on the back of the head with a baseball bat when they're not looking, that are absolute monsters. I'd like to include them in the group of people to get them out of the country, but you'll have to be looking at the laws on that, Steve, okay?
How essential is it for you guys to be locking up these prisoners? And do you think more presidents should follow suit like you guys as far as taking a hard stance on crime here in the United States?
Well, I do. I think everybody has to. I mean, the president said it better than anybody. He said, you know, you have liberty and you have to have liberty, but to have liberty, not everybody is going to be good. And, you know, some are bad because they're sick. They're mentally deranged. They're bad.
Why do you think
then you have to take them. If you're going to have a country, you're going to have to take those people out. And we've been doing that. But this was like an unforced error, they would call it, where we had people that may hate our country, or maybe they're just stupid people. I think they're probably stupid people more so. A lot of people said they did it for the vote. But I did better with Hispanic people than they did, because they always use Hispanic. I did better. You people love me. I saw my poll numbers in your country up through the roof, right? 91%. Some people think they do it for the vote. But they don't have to do it for the vote. They cheat, you know, they're professional cheaters. That's about the only thing they do well. So we just have had a great relationship, and it's become bigger because of a strange thing that happened. You know, I came back. We had no war in Ukraine. We had no war we had no October 7th Middle East problem. We had nothing. We had no inflation. We didn't have the Afghanistan, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, the Afghanistan, not withdrawing, because I would have been out, you know, I had it all set to bring people out with dignity and pride. That was the worst, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, Afghanistan. We didn't have any of that. You wouldn't have had the war with Russia, Ukraine. You wouldn't have had the Middle East problem because Iran was broke. They had no money because we had secondary sanctions on and lots of other sanctions. And now every single thing, got a problem with Iran, but I'll solve that problem. That's almost an easy one. We got to solve a war that should have never started, Ukraine and Russia, and we'll get that solved. And we have to solve problems, and we already solved inflation. You know, if you look at the numbers are incredible, actually. The stock market's up, and we're not letting other countries take advantage of this country like they have for the last 40 years. So thank you very much. You have a question, please?
Yes, Mr. President, thank you so much. You scored another major investment win this morning when NVIDIA pledged to build its AI supercomputer, the first time ever, right here in the United States.
Thank you. That's a question I like. That's true.
What is your reaction to this announcement, sir, and how will this positively benefit Americans across the entire country?
Well, it's one of the biggest announcements you'll ever hear, because NVIDIA, as you know, controls that almost the entire sector, which is one of the most important sectors in the world, between chips and semiconductors and everything else. And they're the biggest. And the other biggest we already have coming in and spending $300 billion, as you know. They announced 2 weeks ago. But NVIDIA is so highly respected. And this was an announcement that a lot of people, I knew it was going to happen, but not to the extent that it happened. It's big. And the reason they did it is because of the election on November 5th and because of a thing called tariffs. As I said, the most beautiful word in the dictionary. After love, God, relationship. The press actually hit me and said, tariff is the most beautiful word in the dictionary. What about family, love, God? So I got hit even on that. You understand? I said, okay. So now I say it's my fifth most favorite word, because they get you on anything. But that NVIDIA, it's one of the great companies of the world, modern, super modern companies, controls segments that nobody, you know, sort of controls the world in a sense, and they're coming in here in the biggest way with hundreds of billions of dollars. Not like millions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars, and I'm honored by it. And I want to thank Jensen and all of the people that we deal with. They're great people, they're brilliant people. And without tariffs, they wouldn't be doing it. Okay? Thank you very much.
Are you considering additional sanctions against Russia after their latest attack? And do you have an update on the rate and when you might announce semiconductor
Well, I already
tariffs?
have sanctions on Russia. I put them there. If you remember, Nord Stream 2, that's the big pipeline that goes through Europe. I stopped it. That's Russia's pipeline, the largest pipeline, I think, in the world, goes to Germany. And I stopped it. And when Biden came in, he approved it. And then they say, oh, I'm friendly with Russia. No. Putin said, you know, if you're my friend, I'd hate to see you when you're my enemy. I stopped the biggest economic job they ever had. I stopped it cold, right? It was dead. You know that, right? And Biden came in and he immediately approved it. What was that all about? And it's a pipeline that takes care of a lot of the needs. Now, you know, it was a very controversial thing, but I stopped it, and Biden approved it. Question?
On tariffs?
No, not you. Not
Presidente update today on potential semiconductor tariffs and potentially pharmaceuticals.
What?
Semiconductor tariffs and potentially pharmaceuticals.
Pharmaceuticals we're going to do. We don't make our own drugs, our own pharmaceuticals. We don't make our own drugs anymore. The drug companies are in Ireland and they're in lots of other places, China. And all I have to do is impose a tariff. The more, the faster they move in. The higher the tariff, is very serious. It's inversely proportional. The higher the tariff, the faster they come. And yeah, we're going to be doing that. That's going to be like we have on cars. We have, as you know, a 25% tariff on cars. We have a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum. And that's what that category fits right now.
Do you have a percentage in mind and a timeline?
I have a timeline, yeah, not too distant future. We're doing it because we want to make our own drugs. We're doing it because we want to make our own steel and aluminum, lumber, other things. And they're all coming in. We have record numbers, $7 trillion. Since I announced, like a month and a half ago, since I came in, we have over $7 trillion being invested in the country. We didn't have $1 trillion. We didn't have $500 billion for some of these guys. They didn't know what the hell they were doing. So we have the largest investment that we've ever heard of, and we're only 2 months in. And that'll continue at levels that you've never seen before. That's what's going to happen. And even the stock market's up today. We also had, you know, a lot of people didn't say it the way it was. We had the largest gain in the stock market in history on every single category last week. That was a nice game because we were getting a little hit because people didn't understand the power of our country economically if you use it right. Do you have something to say on that, JD?
Yes, sir. I mean, look, for 40 years we have lost manufacturing capacity. Workers have seen their wages stagnate. And some of the most critical things that we need, from the pharmaceuticals, the drugs that we give to our children, the antibiotics that we give to our kids, to the weapons that we actually need to fight a war, if God forbid we had to fight a war, we don't make enough of that stuff. And so President Trump ran explicitly on changing that. Yes, as the president mentioned, it caused a little bit of disruption in the market, but I actually think over the long term, workers are going to benefit, stocks are going to go up, American businesses are going to benefit as we reinvest and reindustrialize our country.
And the auto workers and the Teamsters and all of the unions, you know, not traditionally Republican, but I'm winning those unions by, we're up 40, 50 points on the Democrats. They're losing everything. They're losing everything because they just have policies that are not believable. They fight for policies that are 5% popular, and nobody knows who the 5% are. I mean, nobody can find the 5%. But if you go back to Ohio, and by the way, we have the great championship team from Ohio coming in today, right?
Very big day.
And that's going to be a little bit later. And that'll be, if you want to stick around, I'll introduce you to some nice people. You'll see some very large people, right? You'll see some people that even you have not seen people like this. These are big, these are 6'7", 380 pounds with no fat. Okay, that's pretty good, right? But the team, the national championship team, is being honored today at the White House, so that'll be exciting. If you're around, you want to stay around, I'll have you up there. You can tell them all about your prison, how you have to behave. Okay.
How temporary are those exemptions on electronics?
You said yesterday that you're making a decision on Iran very quickly. What do you mean by that? Is that a decision to strike Iran?
Solve their problem very quickly. Iran wants to deal with us, but they don't know how. They really don't know how. We had a meeting with them on Saturday. We have another meeting scheduled next Saturday. I said, that's a long time. You know, that's a long time. So I think they might be tapping us along. But Iran has to get rid of the concept of a nuclear weapon. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. He can't have a nuclear weapon. Nobody can have. We can't have anybody having nuclear weapons. You know, we can't have nuclear weapons. And I think they're tapping us along because we're so used to dealing with stupid people in this country. And I had Iran perfect. You had no attacks. You would have never had October 7th in Israel, the attack by Hamas, because Iran was broke. They were stone cold broke when I was president. And I don't want to do it. I want them to be a rich, great nation. The only thing is, one thing, simple. It's really simple. They can't have a nuclear weapon. And they got to go fast because they're fairly close to having one. And they're not going to have one. And if we have to do something very harsh, we'll do it. And I'm not doing it for us, I'm doing it for the world. And these are radicalized people, and they cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Does that include a potential strike on Iranian nuclear facilities?
Of course it does.
And just a follow-up question, a clarification. You mentioned that you're open to deporting individuals that aren't foreign aliens but are criminals to El Salvador. Does that include potentially U.S. citizens, fully naturalized Americans?
If they're criminals and if they hit people with baseball bats over their head that happen to be 90 years old, and if they rape 87-year-old women in Coney Island, Brooklyn, yeah, that includes them. What, do you think there's a special category of person? They're as bad as anybody that comes in. We have bad ones too. And I'm all for it because we can do things with the president for less money and have great security. And we have a huge prison population. We have a huge number of prisons, and then we have the private prisons, and some are operated well, I guess, and some aren't. But he does a great job with that. We have others that we're negotiating with too. But no, if it's a homegrown criminal, I have no problem. Now, we're studying the laws right now. Pam is studying. If we can do that, that's good. And I'm talking about violent people. I'm talking about really bad people. Really bad people. Every bit as bad as the ones coming in. And I made the statement when I heard about this a long time ago now, 4 years ago. When I heard that this guy was having open borders, I said every single criminal from all over the world is going to be dumped into our country. And that's what happened. Jails. The jails of the Congo were emptied out. The jails of Venezuela were emptied out. And you know what happened? Their crime went way down. But now Venezuela has other problems. You know what the problem is? They have no money. Yeah. Because I shut off their oil, and we put secondary tariffs because they're not doing what's right over there. They know what to do. We spoke to them. I spoke to them. They know what to do. But they have no money. Venezuela has no money. But Iran had no money. And Iran behaved so beautifully. And then Biden took all those secondary tariffs on tariffs on. I told China, you can't buy oil. If you buy oil from Iran, China, I told it to President Xi, then we no longer want you to do business with the United States of America. And those ships disappeared from that harbor so quickly. China. Get along great with China.
Are the talks with Iran productive? Do you want to continue that?
What?
The talks with Iran, do you believe those are productive? Do you want to continue that?
I think Iran could be a great country as long as it doesn't have nuclear weapons. If they have nuclear weapons, they'll never get a chance to be a great country. They will never get a chance. It won't even come close.
Sir, on tariffs?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yesterday you mentioned short-lived product exemptions. Which specific products are you considering, and how long is short-lived? Weeks, months?
I'm looking at something to help some of the car companies where they're switching to parts that were made in Canada, Mexico, and other places, and they need a little bit of time because they're going to make them here, but they need a little bit of time. So I'm talking about things like that.
What about any Apple products, other cell phones?
Look, I'm a very flexible person. I don't change my mind, but I'm flexible. And you have to be. You just can't have a wall and you'll only go. No, sometimes you have to go around it, under it, or above it. There'll be maybe things coming up. I speak to Tim Cook. I helped Tim Cook recently, and that whole business. I don't want to hurt anybody, but the end result is we're going to get to the position of greatness for our country. We're the greatest economic power in the world if we're smart. If we're not smart, we're going to hurt our country very badly. We lost with China over the Biden years trillions of dollars on trade. Trillions of dollars. And he let them fleece us. And we can't do that anymore. And you know what? I don't blame China at all. I don't blame President Xi. I like him. He likes me. I mean, who knows? Who the hell cares?
Do you have any updates on
But you know what? What?
Do you have any updates with talks with China?
No, let me just tell you this. I don't blame China. I don't blame Vietnam. I see they're meeting today. Is that wonderful? That's a lovely meeting. They're meeting, like trying to figure out how do we screw the United States of America. Don't forget, the European Union was formed to do just that. The European Union was formed to hurt the United States and on trade. And they get us on NATO because they don't pay their bills. But now, since I got involved, they have been paying their bills. I took in over $600 billion for NATO. Nobody took in anything. I mean, they were all delinquent. They had 8 nations out of 28 paid their bills. The rest of them were way delinquent. And I said, if you don't pay your bills, we're not going to protect you anymore. And the money poured in over 600. The Secretary General last week made that statement. He said, I've never seen anything like it. We couldn't get anybody to pay because the United States was footing the bill for NATO. Well, we got hurt there, and we got hurt on trade, likewise, European Union. And they've got to come to the table. And they're trying to. They're trying to. But the European Union has taken terrible advantage. They don't take our food products. They don't take our cars. We have millions of their cars, BMW, Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz, many others. They come in by the millions. They don't take. There are no Chevrolets in Munich, I can tell you that. I said to Angela Merkel when she was there, as she was letting millions of people infiltrate Germany, which was not so good we would call them illegal immigrants, but she made them legal. But I said to her, and I get along with her very well, I said, how many Chevrolets do we have in Munich or Frankfurt? Why, none, Donald, none. I said, you're right. And yet we take in millions and millions of cars. No, those days are over. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, President. Thank you, President. Thank you, guys. Mr. President, do you have any comment on the FTC's case against Meta and Mark Zuckerberg? Thank you, Press. Thank you, Press.
Thank you, Nayib.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Press. Let's go. Thank you. Let's go. Oh, thanks, guys. Thank you, Press. Keep coming, Press. Keep coming. Keep going. Thank you. Thank you.
Quite the event there at the Oval Office. You could just sit back and just listen to everybody talk there. I mean, because at the end of the day, you hear all the truth, but then you hear the fake news and the back and forth. The White House Deputy Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller, what an absolute rock star, owning the fake news on the fly during that back and forth between one of the networks and President Trump and President Bukele. Awesome to see Stephen Miller continually being so on point, just as many are, of course, within this White House and the cabinet position. So quite awesome to see that coverage live right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. You did hear President Trump talk about a bit later where the Ohio State football national championship team will be there at the White House. This event will be outside on the South Lawn, so it'll be awesome to see the Ohio State Buckeyes there with President Trump. Always fun to hear President Trump's speeches and just some of his comments that are just fun, talking about football, sports, and all the other things that he talks about when he brings on these great teams to the White House. So quite a serious part of the day this morning, of course, with the president of El Salvador. A little bit more fun a bit later. And this is just Monday, April 14th, as we are approaching just the 3-month mark for President Trump being in office during his second administration. So again, that coverage a bit later starts at 2:30 Eastern. RSBN host Robert McNeely will be here for that. So 2:30 Eastern, we'll start our live coverage for the Ohio State University Buckeyes and President Trump for that South Lawn event at the White House. All of this brought to you by a number of great sponsors. Let's run through a couple of them just to thank them right now. Colonial Metals Group, freegoldguide.com/RSBN, a great sponsor here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, Colonial Metals Group. Let's go to angelpaste.com out of Spring, Texas. If you're looking for a code to have a savings off of this product, you can use RSBN as that code. Out of Spring, Texas, angelpaste.com. Moving on now to callshe.com/RSBN. You see there, will egg prices go up this month? Well, people are saying there's 11% chance, but you can vote, you can bet, you can trade, and have fun there on callshe.com/RSBN. Also, let's go with Tax Network USA. Tax Network USA, tnusa.com/RSBN. 800-357-1415 is the phone number for Tax Network USA. As of course, tomorrow is tax day, and if you have any back taxes, you can get them taken care of, at least on a plan to get them taken care of with Tax Network USA. Also, MyPillow.com, another great sponsor here at the network. MyPillow.com, upwards of 2,000 products on MyPillow.com. So use that promo code RSBN. Speaking of RSBN, if you'd like to donate to the network, all you do is text RSBN to 801-801. So text RSBN to 801-801. All right, so we'll see you at 2:30 Eastern as President Trump meets with the Ohio State University football team. I'm Matthew Alvarez. Thanks so much for streaming in. We'll see you a bit later.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
President Trump is keeping his promises and saving America. And your kids can learn all about it for free with a new Kids Guide to President Trump. This fun guide shows kids all the steps President Trump is taking to put America back on top of the world stage, including building a strong economy, protecting our borders, and negotiating trade deals. It's an exciting way for kids to learn about President Trump's outstanding leadership. Act now and get a free bonus guide, The Courage of the President. Order now at freetrumpbook.com. That's freetrumpbook.com.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live Show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.